This is the Dog Psychology Podcast with Linn Boyke, Todd Langston, and Art Ortiz.
Okay. I almost even choose not to see it as methods, but just like, what is it that what's needed? Like what is this dog going to thrive with, or what is the most basic part of what a dog's going to just be? I go for balance. I'm so ADHD in a way that I try to almost train with that lapse of my mind in mind, and by almost dumbing it down to that point, I think it's more realistic for the owners.
I think I missed part. You were frozen there for a second, so I missed what behavior you were talking about the dog has.
Oh, no behavior, nothing in particular. I wasn't speaking of behavior, anything in specific, but just the generality of, like we were talking before, is, what do you expect? What do you expect at the end of the day? I think a great topic is, what do you expect a client to be able to do, right? So what would be an expectation? I have a student here with me, and anybody that's training less than 5 years, I think, goes through something similar, where their expectations of what the client is going to do versus what the client actually does is kind of different. And it's frustrating because at that point, you're really good with dogs. After a couple of years, you're really super good with dogs, but that doesn't mean that you're necessarily good at getting the information across. You're good enough. Look, your version of good, and what I'm saying is, and what I've seen is, you are good enough and competent enough to teach 95% of the situations out there. There's always going to be those 5% of this. Yeah, I believe that. There's always going to be those 5% of the situations that require somebody with an extensive knowledge or handling skill set. But dude, most of it's not that bad. If you look at the way that people call us, we'll get the worst cases, but that doesn't mean that's the majority of what's out there.
No, I don't think that's either. Yeah, but
so what would be, like, we're talking about art? Go ahead.
Why do I have 5 and 6? Why every time I go over to a client, they have 5 or 6 trainers before them?
Why do you think that is?
Well, I'm asking you because you said 95% is covered if you've been.
Because the human thinks they know what they need, and they're waiting for the trainer to agree with them, as opposed to the trainer that comes in and may go, hey, look, this is not exactly what this situation calls for. You've chosen to ignore the advice of 5 trainers. There's no way you got 5 bad trainers. No way.
I think
no. No, there's no, look, man, I've trained enough trainers in mass with these things to go, look, I think there's a lot of people that are marginal in their skill set. But if you randomly call 5 people in your environment, unless you're hooked on like a purely positive viewpoint and you need something else, one of those 5 gave you good advice. You chose not to do it. You chose to ignore it. You didn't think it was relevant. And so it takes somebody sometimes that comes in and opens you up. It's not even that they provide you with a new point of view. It's that they're, for whatever reason, able to open your brain up to take it. And I've heard
that's always a red flag for me, by the way. If someone's gone through a lot of trainers, it's a red flag. I always kind of I'll look at, but I'm always curious. Well, what did they tell you? What did you do? I'm always asking these questions because I really need to know, why did you go through 5 trainers? And I'm not one of these. It drives me crazy that when people post on like their social media, this, they went through 5 trainers and now they're coming to me like they're the savior of all. Like, it drives me crazy when other trainers do that. You know what I mean? Like,
I didn't say anything about not me being a savior, but
no, I'm not saying you, but like I see it a lot. Like, because they don't understand dog psychology. I get that. I know I get their point, but it drives me crazy when like trainers do that. Like, again, like they're the savior.
I think the thing that you guys are missing right now, and it's not because anybody is uneducated. I think that you don't realize how big the world is with dogs and dog trainers. It's a huge thing now. I mean, it's exploded to the point where it's just too much. There's too many people trying to do it, and you can easily go through several trainers when you get there. Depends on what kind of person you have, and then this person only brings a block of cheese, or the next person wants to be more physical and they're not physical. There's several reasons why someone could go through 5 trainers. In fact, not every one of them. Trust me, I'm playing devil's advocate because I understand somebody going through so many dog trainers, there's an issue. But at the same time, somebody able to say, no, you're not for me, that's actually pretty good. I really think that that's amazing. You're not the trainer for me. Stop doing that to my dog, and I need you to leave. Or let's just get through this, honey, and we'll just get somebody else. We'll pay it. That's how much it costs to get out. But I've run into so many people that had multiple trainers because there are so many more trainers available now. And it's insane, the quality that people have. Now, you say after 2 years, there should be good. I think you need to come out and check out these people that have been doing it for 2 years, and you will say, holy moly.
But I do. I mean, this is what I do, not only with people that come here, but let's just look at the training Caesar's way. The majority of trainers we see come through there, there's a pattern they follow. And what I'm saying is handling skills and the ability to understand the situation after a couple years isn't that hard for a lot of these people. I've seen plenty of people that I don't think are necessarily good trainers, adequate handlers, and they have enough understanding to change the behavior of the majority of dogs they touch. Now, are they operating by perfect standards? Are they doing everything to the standard that I might want them to? Not necessarily, but that doesn't make them ineffective. But it might make them a bad teacher because they're not necessarily able to teach the right thing because they don't do it perfectly. But what I'm saying is they're able to take dogs and change them for the better.
And that's true. A lot of people can do that. You take them into their own house and they can change dogs for the better, but they have no ability to transfer that information to the owner. And
it's two different skills. It's almost like it requires two different people.
Skills.
It is two different skills.
About one subject, owners going through 5 trainers. Whether there's 2 to 10 different subjects, it's one trainer walking in with one of the lack of abilities to do the other, and then they leave. So it's not always the client. Now, don't get me wrong. I've seen plenty of clients that I'm like, what? Why don't you just follow through with what the trainer told you before? And you'd have at least a better position to start from now. It is a different subject when you look from one to the other, but it's overwhelming how many dog trainers are out there. And half the time you can't tell whether they've had 2 years or they're just saying they've got 2 years experience. And that's
what I laugh about is that there's traits. Like I'll do some funny posts. Like, you see all these people that like to do like how a Doberman reacts to the mailman, and I'll mimic the 1 to 3 year old, the 1 to 3 year trainer, and then like the 3 to 5 year trainer. And the first 1 to 3 year trainer is like, correct it. No, correct that. Correct. No, just correct it. Correct it. Correct that. That, correct it. Correct that. Correct it. That. Correct it. That.
Yeah.
And then after 2 or 3 years, they start to drift around a little bit, and then they go to some yogi somewhere that's like, no, you must pray, right? So they abandon completely the first part, and now they're in this whole existential part where everything's completely different but energy based and weird and all this. And then somewhere like at the 5 or 6 year mark, they balance those 2 things out, and you see they're pretty chill. They're built their business pretty good. They've got their pack walks going on. And that's when they start to go out and they start to work with that big list of trainers that's available, and they go through. And so it's like this.
Oh yeah, it's let's take a bunch of left hand and right hand turns and instead of just getting straight to it. Yeah, but I don't know how to judge all that either, But I do know that there's no way 5 trainers should go to one person. And a lot of times people will tell them to put their dog down, so they're not even touching the dog. And that's an immediate, no, I'll get another trainer. Sometimes that's the thing. But
I will say here in Dallas, because I've been doing this for so long here, that when they said they've gone through X amount of trainers, I asked them, who are they?
Yeah.
Because I will already know what they've done. So it gives me some information to know what I'm going to do, because if they've already done it, I'm pretty sure, because I know how most people work. They may be a positive trainer. They may be, someone who's on the balance side and things like that. And so I will already have an idea. The only difference is the information on how it's delivered. it could be the same exact information. And that's what you're talking about, the skill set of being able to communicate to the dog, but also communicate to the human.
Right.
Is a skill set that everybody should have, right? And I will say that, I know before we start recording, we started talking about pack positions. I use Caesar's pack positions on how I communicate to the humans as well.
Right.
That's great. Now, what happens when, like, I have trainers contact me all the time with just like one question. Like, this one comes in all the time. What pack position do you think this dog is? And so I already know that whatever my answer is going to be, it's some puzzle piece that's going to finish whatever they're doing with their client or friend or whatever they need that specific reason, that answer for, which I always ask them what position they think they're in. And then they tell me this and that. We go back and forth, and it's never the one that they started out with. And it absolutely has nothing to do with what they were thinking and putting so much weight into to find the answer out. Now, the other ones, the worst ones, who just say this is a back of the pack dog, or they say this is whatever position they are as a matter of fact, and that's it. But it still doesn't have anything to do with what they're talking about or what their end result is. So I guess what I want to know from you guys is, what is the definition for each position in the pack? And then I have a couple other questions about that as well. You know, how can, first of all, what is Caesar's, definition of how that works? Front of the pack. I mean, I know what I just want to hear what he does, and then maybe you can help me see how people are getting so confused.
I mean, I'll start. I mean, you can finish off, Todd. Yeah. So, Caesar will talk about each dog has their own pack position, and for me, like we'll start with the back of the pack, and the back of the pack are the sensitive dogs. They're the ones that can their senses could be heightened, whether it's a sight or sound, things like that. But also, people think that a back of the pack is always a fearful dog, which is not the case. Right. It's just a trait that a back of the pack can have, but doesn't mean that it's fearful. As a matter of fact, I even asked Caesar, what about is a pack weaker or something like that? Or are they weaker? He says, no. He's like, the pack is actually stronger because the pack cannot survive without a back of the pack to alert when danger is going to happen and things like that. And so, I also want to talk about how important to realize that back of the pack is also, like I said, is not a fear thing, because you have a service dog who their senses are heightened. They can smell they alert when someone runs low on glucose and things like that. Their senses is heightened. It doesn't mean that they're sensitive nerve, and I think that's where a lot of times people get that confused. And so, for the back of the pack is the sensitive ones. Yes, they can display some fear, things like that, but that's not always the case.
Well, to me, it's not that they've displayed fear. They displayed apprehension, and then the human got involved in it of fear. So yeah, I agree completely that basically as they become more sensitive, that alerting side, and even that guy Sean Ellis, he mentions this, that one of the things that happens with the sensitive, what he described, even he used the term back of the pack, is that they become the over barkers, the over alerters in the world if the human doesn't properly deal with that. So, I don't necessarily say I know exactly the placement of your dog. For me, it's a reference of confidence versus sensitivity. And that is, it's a generalized reference for me to say, okay, just like you said, Art, the back of the pack's the alerter. So then the middle of the pack is what?
The happy-go-lucky, the ones that are just kind of bring everything together. They're like the glue that brings everything together.
What does Caesar call them?
Happy-go-lucky?
Human resources. He calls them the human resource department.
That's right. Yeah.
The ones that
the middle child.
Basically, that they're the ones that, and the way that I've always seen it is that without them, the front and the back can't have a relationship because there's too much separation and their ability to be intimate with each other based on the confidence and sensitivity. So the middle guy comes in and brings the whole thing together. Right. So, like Colleen, she always called herself a what? What do you remember her pack position? You called herself
middle.
A confident, a front, the front of the middle. That's what it was. The front of the middle. And so I think for us, it's just a reference point. I don't necessarily use it as concrete.
See, that's what needs to. That's what I needed to hear is that it should be. And
I'll tell you what, though, Linn, when I will be very, very vocal when I come across what I know as a true front. Like every once in a while, you come across a puppy, and you're like, "Holy shit!" And the owners called you in, earlier, and I had this, and these people got this Akita puppy, and they brought me in the day they got it at 7 weeks old, and they're like, "Hey, we're worried. We had a dog that had aggression and controlled everything." And I see this dog at 7 weeks old. I go, "Well, if you want my truest opinion, give the puppy back right now."
right now,
I go, "You got something that you really can't deal with." And like at 11 months old, it grabbed the neighbor's dog by the head and body slammed it. Like fucking took it and slammed it. And then it just, those things progress. And at 2 years old, it ends up doing something completely out of the level of control you could see at 7 weeks old, severe to a family member. And so every once in a while, it is so recognizable that you have a front. That's when I'll really vocalize. But outside of that, for me, it's a reference. How about you, Art?
Yeah, so for me, like the fronts, it could be very challenging to work with if they don't have a sensitivity.
Right.
You get those ones that are really confident, don't have any sensitivity in anything. Those can be a little challenging. And once I see that, I recognize that, I'm like, I don't know about this, And I'll be honest about some like when I'm working with a client, I'm like, you got a lot of work on your hands right now.
and that was which back
Front.
Okay.
And to me, the front in reference to me. I don't care and sometimes it's like, I don't care what they're in reference to the other dogs. I need that for the social aspect of the other dogs. But like, it's like, how do you reference yourself to me right now? Are you referencing yourself as like something that wants to go and throw down out of sheer confidence and like the desire to just fucking be physical? That's different than I've got a history or a habit of wanting to bite for whatever reason. I don't see that as a dog that's a front. I see that's a dog that learned something. But
and another important aspect, Todd, is that people also assume that because you have a front, they're also aggressive. That's not the case. They will only display those things if they don't have any certain boundaries or no direction on what, because it's like a human being with no purpose.
They go along with what you do. I had somebody send me a video. They were working with this dog, and to me, this dog was exceptionally confident. And this person wasn't connecting with it, but they were just kind of like steering it around. And I go, "Hey, that dog's letting you do that." I go, "That dog is letting you take it through the motion, and it's only going to do it so much," because you can see its mentality was to allow it. Because to me, that's what really confident dogs will do. They're not there to fight you. They'll even go along with it. They'll just find their moment where they're like, no. If you don't see that connection part that you're talking about, Art. So to that, what we said, Linn, what is your, take or 2 cents or concern on the whole thing?
Well, I love that you pointed out that you use it as a reference point, and it's not the necessarily an actual needed thing to know where they are in the pack. Besides where you are, who they want to be, who they're attempting to be. If I'm going to work or if you're going to work with them, who do they think they are? That's much better. And I think anytime someone asks me or statement and it's completely wrong, that's how I'm gonna gesture to it. That's just a reference point, because for me, I think that I love the idea of having that front of the back, middle of the back of the pack as a reference. But then I would add on out of the pack, because a lot of the dogs that we work with wouldn't be in a pack, let alone a position of a pack, because the pack would shun them or kill them, or they would cause so much problems, drawing attention to them, scaring away the prey, that they wouldn't be in the pack. Like the dog that Chance that took up and down the stairs, that dog wouldn't be in a pack, but not as he was. But again, if I wanted to know, are we talking about if they were in a pack or in the pack they live in, or
No, I think let's use the reference comment again. It's to gain an understanding of it can almost replace words such as confident or sensitive or strong and weak.
See, that's another better way to describe what it would be for. But people are seriously, they're putting it out like that. You got to get rid of that dog because it's a back of the pack, or what. You get what I'm saying? They're very, I know something. So I love the way you're describing it. That would be
because I'm fucking amazing. What?
Oh, what I'm saying is, as a reference point, it's not an end-all be-all. Like taking away words like dominant or what have you. That I love that he believes that and if people would say stuff, that dog believes that it's front of the pack. And that's another question. What about dogs that would be deemed by back of the pack by Caesar, but when we see them, they are front of the pack where they live?
This is where I think, and Art, I don't want to speak for you. I think this is where we have probably some of the most disagreement amongst us with him, is when he will label a dog and we're like, wait a second. So he labeled a dog not recently, a year back as middle. And I told the student, no, that dog's way more confident than middle. And he adopted the dog based on Caesar's interpretation. The dog gave his family fucking fits because it was a dog. Gave it fits because it came in, it had too much confidence for what he wanted from it. And in my interpretation,
the husky?
Yes.
Ah, yes, I remember.
The husky.
Yeah.
And the husky, I saw the husky as way more
at the front of the pack. just
well,
the breed.
You know what I'm saying? And so I saw, and you know, his interpretation was different. And I'd have to say that over the years, the one thing I've gotten comfortable with is having disagreement with certain things. Now, there are certain things, there's certain assessments that I will surrender to with him, just because I feel like it's just his connection to it's different than mine. But there's other things that no, I confidently or comfortably will say no.
Well, in those cases, is Caesar only looking at the dog and who the dog would be to him at that time? Or is he taking into account where the dog is staying and what it's practiced? And
he's usually pretty quick and simple. And to me, I think dogs will show different characteristics depending on if it's around humans versus dogs, for example. And so the thing he used as the interpretation in this case was eye contact. That was the defining behavior that he used, and that this dog held such strong eye contact that he used that as the description when he was describing to a student why he chose that position for that dog.
Middle of the pack.
He called it a middle. That's right. It wasn't that way. He called it a middle, and it was based on the way that his eyes were not holding it. And
it was not holding eye contact.
What wasn't based on what he was seeing. I was seeing something different.
Okay.
And it wasn't I was seeing it at a different time, or that I saw the dog in different situations, because I have so much more contact with these dogs. I see them early in the day. I see them interacting when they're fresh, you know, and that's one of the reasons I adopted Blue, is I saw her for 6 weeks interact with 100 different dogs. And in each time, she more or less got it right. And to me, I'm like, dude, you can't miss that. And I told the other trainers, I'm like, if you're trying to adopt a pack dog, this dog can help you. She can do things for you. And she's done just that, because I got 6 weeks of seeing the ups and downs. I mean, she had some issues, but primarily that ability to watch her interact, I knew where she was in a pack. She's a confident, like I would call her a confident middle. Caesar had her for about 3 weeks when I was in transition of getting her. So I would have some messages with him, and he's like, she's all husky, loves the water. And then he's like, she was real predatory, but I fixed it. And then I got her, and she would just chase the shit. I'm like, fuck off. And so he has his assessments, and I have mine.
Right.
She's submissive to me. But she holds characteristics that make me earn it. I can't have too many days off. You know, she's one of these dogs that you just have to be consistent with knowing what she needs, and she's perfect. But she would appear, in my opinion, probably very dominant to somebody and controlling that doesn't do it, because she would essentially go whoosh right away. So you would see that position change.
Yeah, so it's just a reference point at any given time, not a permanent thing.
I'm speaking for me. I don't know about you, Art, but no, it seemed like you have a version of the way people interact with you with the comments. I know us as a group, it really doesn't factor into too much as far as strategy development. It's more a descriptive term and a reference point to gain confident, happy-go-lucky, kind of a good energy, and more sensitive, you tend to see more backing away characteristics. So this one's going to move forward, this one's going to move around, this one's going to move away. And I think this is what we've used it over times with, is to reference the direction the dog is tending to move overall.
And see, that makes much more sense, because I wasn't there for, I mean, I understand what a front, middle, and back, plus I was in the Marine Corps, we had front, middle, back, but we don't put the weakest, we don't have the weakest in there. But, you know, the team leader's usually in the back. So it's crazy. But with this, I understand that you guys don't have that much problem because you guys are teaching the people, or they're learning that at the time. But when they leave there, boy, is it part of their behavioral analysis, and it's like a big thing. He's back at the pack, he's front, he's middle of the back. But I think that there's a flow. I mean, that's what a pack does in the first place. It flows. So
well, it's funny because like anytime people go to TCW, there's always one takeaway the class takes. I mean, there's one time when Stan from X Dog came out, and he had all the weighted vests, and that was like, I see on social media, and everybody that was at TCW had the weighted vest, you know? And so, or just like something that was said that everyone just kind of picked out one thing and they just put it all over social media all the time, you know? But we watch and we kind of laugh.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning too, about when you teach, you need to know what people hear.
Yes.
Different than what you say. And over time, you learn how people hear what you say as an individual trainer. And it's often quite different. Like you're saying, Linn, you know, this is what people hear, but they take home something and they go through it with this process of, it has to be this.
Yeah. Otherwise,
that's the big
work, they say, they feel, you know? I mean,
I get this a lot. What pack position am I? The person, the student asks.
Oh, yeah.
What pack position am I?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, dude, you're
obviously a back.
Yeah, just by asking it, dude, you know what position you are.
I remember that one student who was convinced that he was a front, and we're like, no, you're a back.
Oh, they're asking
and he was
about
so like
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
little narcissist.
It's because people badly want, I think they define themselves by the ability to be confident in front of confident dogs. It's weird, but I think that's some weird litmus test that people in this line of work, they find themselves on the ability to work with nervous dogs, like Angela. Like Angela has defined herself on the ability to work with sensitive dogs that have all these issues, and she is amazing with it. But most people want.
Wait a second, you saying that she doesn't think she can?
No, but what I'm saying, no, she has stayed in the world that she thrives in her abilities with.
Yeah.
Right? Where most people, for whatever reason, think you have to work with the gnarliest, aggressive, like I want to hurt you dogs to be good at this. You don't. And that's the thing is, I think a part of this is, you know how much pride comes from people when they tell us they own a front that they've improved, even in the way they say it. They're like, I have a front, and he was aggressive, and now I
see that right there. That the way they're saying, I have a front.
Yeah,
that's like
that's rare, by the way. That's super rare.
What would they have a front, or just say it like that? I'm talking about people say it like that, like this. If you know you have a front, then the way that they not front of the pack, I have a front. That means they've been using it for so long that they've gone ahead and brought it down into just the front. And then people are supposed to know what that means. Of course, you guys do. But that's what I mean. People are just taking that and saying that's what they believe. And then they take that same understanding to other parts, and that's what they believe. That is, I'm just saying, I think that it's more of an interpretation and a time thing to be able to say at this moment, you know, the dog is.
I don't know, but it's a lot of this. I think when it's a lot of the verbiage of this, it's not. No harm, no foul. Maybe it confuses people or something like that, but I don't think these are the things that are the faults that hurt people. Like some of the other stuff, like
not the words. They don't hurt people, but the mind behind it and seeing it just so one way, and then everything else. I just took that front, back, middle thing, but they do the same thing for everything. That's when they can hurt, because they tell clients, or they tell other students this, and this, and then they may learn 2 years down the line something different, but they don't go back and fix all the things that they set in motion with the one thing that was God's word. from there.
And by the way, Linn, like when I go into a client's house, I never say your dog is front, middle, back. It's just it's in my mind. It's not something that I'm teaching. I just go there. It's from my point of reference, like, oh, this. But I when I go into a house and I go into a consultation, I'm already the first 10 seconds. I'm like, okay, sensitive dog, back of the pack. I already know what I'm going to do. Very disrespectful, happy-go-lucky dog. I already know what I'm going to do. So it's just it's like a gateway for when I make my assessment. I've gotten really good at making the assessment right away and then having a plan of action of what I'm going to do. Now, it's really important also that because earlier when I said, I use the same technique or the same analogy for pack position, when I go into people's homes, I do the exact same thing. And what that means for me is when I go in there and I have a conversation with the people, I become back of the pack. I listen. I become sensitive to everything that they're doing. And then I become a middle of the pack by looking at what books they're reading, what's on TV, or what they're into. So I become that connection piece. I try to connect with them so that they, so that we can build this rapport and trust, And then I show them what we're going to do, because you just can't come into a house and say, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. You'll never build up any communication with anybody or any trust. I know that.
That sounds familiar, Art. I've heard that before.
What's that?
What you just described. I think that's one of the strongest things that I've heard from the way Caesars describes how he can go in and use that same mentality, like play the position, go in back like that, sensitive. You're good at that.
He's a
that's
middle
my
child,
struggle.
so he's amazing at doing that.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that the connection comes from.
Yeah.
And moving forward through humor and then control.
I mean, look at what he did to get this podcast. He was the nice go-between between the two of us, and
that's exactly right.
That's how it's going. So
I am the glue that's keeping this together, by the way.
Yeah,
got it. But no, you're see, this is to me where what I've learned is this: let's just say from a standpoint, if you wanted to run a really successful business in the dog training world, you can be exceptionally average at your dog training skills, but have an exceptionally high social IQ and a good way to make relationships and thrive beyond words.
Oh.
You can be fucking savant at this and know everything, but with low people skills, I'm going to struggle. And so it's like you're giving up something to get something. And that's the reality of it. Is it's the ability to give this information something people can take. It's not the ability to necessarily ace your ability with the dogs. And that's what I was saying earlier is if you're good enough, especially if you have a high social IQ, because you're going to get enough information across. Because once you get above a certain skill level, you can't convey that information in the amount of time that we work with people, because it's taken so long to get that information built up. That's my thought.
I agree with you. It's hard to get people to even want to continue to learn past the beginning. It's very hard they say they want to learn more, they need to learn more, but then when they start to find out how hard it is to actually, I've got a full business and I need to learn how to do dogs. So I don't have time to go and learn because I can't say no to everybody. I will lose my business. Or, wow, that seems like a lot of work. Or I don't want to go in and be the newbie and look stupid. And so they just keep going. That's just not, I think that everybody should continue to grow and learn and want to.
Well, you know what it is, Linn and Todd? Here's the thing: like when these trainers come in and they can be effective, but it's because that they've convinced the owner to do something.
Yes.
Right? And before they're doing nothing. And so I always have a saying: if you do something, you get something. If you do nothing, you get nothing. Right? And so they're just giving enough information so that the owners do something to get some improvement. And so, like, oh my God, this is amazing. Recently, a couple of years ago, I went to a workshop, and it wasn't, it was average. It was okay. This is kind of a well-known trainer. And I was like, this is okay. Nothing to, that I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. I was like, it was okay.
Talk about me like that, Art.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Mine was amazing.
No, yours was amazing. But because Caesar ruined me. Caesar and Linn both ruined me, So you go to workshops like, that's okay, But when I was there and like, I was just kind of I was listening to it and like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't. And I'm just like, okay, all right.
The bar is low is what I've been saying, and is what you're confirming, is the bar is so low that people are looking at that as things as amazing, when they have just look over the bar, for crying out loud, and you'll see what amazing can be. Did I go off
No.
the wrong way? I think that I was on the topic you were talking about. If you saw something that everybody was saying amazing and you're like, it's all right, that's the bar that's out there, and it shouldn't be. Here's what bothers me, and I'm gonna do it with a fucking smile. You get these guys teaching trainers out there, and if you look at the pyramid, and the teacher is amazing, great, phenomenal, the best you can get students to be, or might be good, so that they can go out and learn to be great and phenomenal. But what happens when that teacher isn't even good at their point of the pyramid? And what kind of students are you getting out of there? If what should come out are good students, but the teacher is not even good, or will qualify them as good, we're below. The students are below average.
And just to clarify, what I saw was good.
We all know that you're talking shit about somebody. No, we know what you mean.
It just was like, I was like, okay, like the fact that I was able to recognize that the owners were just doing something with their dog, something they've never done before, and they were seeing results. So what I'm saying is, like, if people just put minimal effort into doing something, you're going to get something. Period. That's all.
That's 100% true. If they do something, they're going to get something. I like it. I love that both of you are you both are, especially Art, really making people better. You're looking at the great side of everybody. And both of you want to make sure that when you say this about people, that what they're doing is am I talking out loud? Is this coming out of my
Oh my God. Yes. Here we go again.
What I mean is you guys are very positive, and you're hopeful of what the results are from the people that we're discussing about in general. I only see the worst part, and that's unfortunate, but I just keep seeing the stuff that they're doing with just get them to do something. And I agree with both of you.
Hey, you remember
disagree.
Do you remember when I talked about the reason that I don't look at like certain violent videos is because it puts shit in me that can't come out?
Mm-hmm.
The same thing about watching trainers that I don't think are doing good jobs. There's no reason for me to watch them. They're not contacting me for help. Watching them suck doesn't do anything but go into you and then make you feel what that suckiness is creating, right? So now dogs are struggling, the owners are struggling, and that's out there, but I can't do anything about it. So watching it and internalizing it, for me anyways, I just ignore it and avoid it because it's outside of my realm of the ability to reach. And so I've just chosen to sound positive because what I know is, I was talking to this guy today because I have a guy here that he's in that same phase of where he gets kind of frustrated because the people aren't necessarily doing what he thinks they should do. And he's at that phase, like I said, where he's really good at handling the dogs. The dogs technically aren't really his problem. The nuances will come, and I look at him and I go, well, how much good advice have you ignored? Right? How much good financial advice? How much good health advice? How much good fitness advice? How much good advice about your persona, your being? How much have you ignored and just been like, fuck it? Or it's good, but it's just not something that you can get into. So somewhere along the line, I just chose to accept that everybody else's performance is not my responsibility. Unless you're, for whatever reason, intimately connected to me for a long period of time, the way you operate has nothing to do with, and I cannot process your failures, or not failures, process your inabilities. And it goes back to the same thing. So for me, and this is how I keep my energy as good as I can for me, I choose not to process that energy because it's negative. I can't watch people fucking trip up and do this dumb shit that's out there because part of me wants to just grab them. What the fuck? It's like you want to do that. And that process doesn't serve you anything. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying in general. And that's it. It's the same thing. I can't save them all. You've saved a lot.
All right, here we go. Ready, Linn?
That's it. You just can't save what you can't. And that's it. So that's where I draw the line so that I don't get pulled into a fight I can't win.
I see Lynn's ants in his pants right now.
I've got ants in my pants always, in my pants. So what you said there, this is a great time for bringing that up, because even at the time when we were talking about it, what you heard me say, or what you thought I was going to say, was violent videos, violent this, and it wasn't even close. I was just talking about looking at any video that's on happy-go-lucky social media, and I can see everything from beginning to end before that video is taken. I just can't not see it. It's something that.
So don't watch it. The point I'm saying is
Let me finish, dude. You can't not watch people who are trying to apply to come to your fucking school. And so you really need to, I need to. Let me back up. I don't want this to be an argument. I want us to find a way that we understand each other, okay?
Don't worry, I'll keep it together. Just say what you have to say.
I really don't want it to be that way. I'm not going out looking for.
Oh, I thought you were.
No.
That's my interpretation. I thought you were scouring the internet for people. Shit they're doing wrong.
I have, but I don't do that. It just is there. Even.
I'm so glad we finally got this out. My goodness.
But seriously, though, on that, yeah, I get it. I'll show you violent things, and I'll show you this, but I only look at that stuff for behavior, which now is my problem. I can't even see the lady at the grocery store without seeing what she did to her kids or things like that. Now, that sounds ridiculous, but I can.
Doesn't.
And
I get it.
It's
you can't.
And I can't stop. It's like a guy who can see X-ray vision and he can't stop seeing through everything. It's a torture. And that's what I was talking about that day. And when I was saying that you weren't looking, I'm saying you're not looking for it, but you're not looking deep, and you're telling me why you don't look deep, and that's fantastic. However, I think that we have a responsibility, and our responsibility is to, yeah, sure, when we're in positions, we don't want to talk bad about everybody, but when we are in positions to help people, we don't necessarily need to talk bad about them by showing flaws, talking about the flaws to help people improve, because we have a voice. We have people who watch and come to us. It is our responsibility. And when I go to places and I see workshops, and dogs are barking and barking, and I don't see this. Somebody's told me about it. Barking and barking and barking, and none of the instructors are doing anything. And so they leave. None of the instructors say don't leave. They go over and calm the dogs down. And why won't they bring that in and share the experience of that? But that's one thing. But I think, guys, that we're in a different position right now. We're not under somebody else's workshop. We have something that we can show people. And I'm not looking to make trainers bad, but they are the ones that are helping dogs. And if we are here to help dogs, people learn dog psychology, I think it's important to show what some people are thinking dog psychology and what really is and how it affects. Because when these people go in, you watch them on their social media, and they talk like matter of fact without hearing how the client hears things, meaning they have their filters. And when you say certain things to them, then they stop thinking about what you're teaching them. And now they're thinking they're bad, or the dog's bad, or it's worse situation than it is. Instead of learning who you're communicating with, communicate with them, help them bridge that gap between them and the dog and the issue. And I don't think that nowadays, man, we're dinosaurs. Nowadays on social media, everybody is just a talking head and repeating stuff. There's no teaching anymore. And I think that we have an opportunity to every now and then pop on a video and just show what's happening. And from what's happening, if you guys don't want to, I can tell you what happened before, and I can tell you what's going to happen later. It's a pattern. And if people...
You talking about a video breakdown?
That, or even just talking about this, I think giving everybody the benefit of the doubt, like you guys do, which is fantastic, isn't necessarily helpful for people who want to learn the things that we know. I don't want people to go, oh, well, I've been doing this too long. I don't have to do anything. So we'll let them do whatever they do. I don't want to do that. I want people to learn from us. All three of us have a different perspective of the same thing and have different things to offer. And whether I say something negative about somebody, neither one of us should be mad at me, because now the middle child can come in and say something marshmallowy. And then here comes Todd can come in and turn on the heat. And now we've got a nice s'more. Okay. We've melted it enough. And there's no reason why we can't see. I'm not saying any one of us is middle, back, or whatever, but we definitely have, if it's a range, soft, medium, hard in outlooks and the way we talk. And I think that is a beneficial recipe for people to learn from. And I never want you guys to think, oh, Linn wants to show me some this or that, or he's negative. All I'm doing is I'm the guy that's actually talking for the dog. And I don't care how good somebody might be or how they were good enough. Those people are left with the dog, and they're just going to take their version of good enough.
You're not the only guy that speaks for the dogs, though.
I think no. Please don't take it that way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying that you guys aren't talking about the dog for the dogs. I'm talking about, in this case, I am, because I want to talk about why nobody's doing this or that, and it is for the dogs. But you guys are there for the dogs too. I'm not trying to be like that. I'm just saying that we have a good combination here where we have three different views of one thing, and we're all doing good things. It's just that I think that we could use our understandings in a different way that be more helpful. Because I don't mind when people say that Linn, he's this, but we wouldn't have the middle and top of it if I didn't bring it up.
What do you see they miss the most?
Who?
Like, and what you see people doing that are seeking you out for help, or the things you look at. What is one or two things that you think is the most misunderstood part of this that you would want to straighten out?
False confidence.
Yeah, false confidence is one thing. False knowledge is another, because the knowledge people are getting, workshop is not an education. It's not. It's a participation. You guys have the highest level one where everybody comes in and they came in one way, they spoke up, and now they feel better, at least for the day. That's not an education for dogs. It's just not an education. And everybody, all these places, I have no problem with Caesar doing it, but given a whole day where we're doing dinner and a participation trophy is a day away from education, in my opinion. Where you see these other workshops, they in their workup to sell it, they show a fine dining thing and candles and everything. I get it. It's social. It's very community. It's community oriented, and I have no problem with community, even if I don't want to be in a community. But if it's about education for dogs that are going to get hurt or harmed or dropped off or whatever in the middle mix, I have something hardcore to say about it. That's all. And I think that a lot of people come to me thinking they're going to just have that extra check in their bucket list of people to go to, and I'll kick them out right away. I don't give a shit.
I think if I'm misunderstanding, if I'm what I hear you say is, you're worried about that the information that people are doing and the work that they're doing with the dogs is harming dogs, and yes, I agree with that. But the way I see my approach to anything is I can only do what I can do, and the dog that's in front of me is what I'm going to help.
Yep.
And that is how I feel I make the difference in the world, is by helping that owner and that dog today, right now.
That's a fair.
I can't worry about anything else.
You also work at TCW, where you have hundreds of people coming in throughout there. That's not the same as working with that one dog. But
I'm working with that one person.
What?
I do work with that individual person. When I talk to them, they have my undivided attention. I talk to this person.
And when they start calling, you got to get into here, and you can't finish it. Right? Everything's on time. It's scheduled. I'm just saying that you have more to do.
Oh, I've been yelled by Todd so many times.
Yeah.
That, where are you? Why are you in the tent? I'm dealing with something right now.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. There's that. I'm saying that you're right. what the dog that I'm working with is the most important. But all three of us work with people who want to work with dogs. And so that is our responsibility. And if in our show, we're not working with one single dog, we have access to helping people at least become aware that there's more things that they need to do or should learn or should be focused on. That is our responsibility. And I have no problem with you guys going, here comes Linn doing this and that again, but I don't want it to cause you guys problems thinking that I am a problem or he's going to do this. No, I want to just bring up this so we can look at it so that then each one of you can look at whatever part of it you want or add on to it so that we can benefit people. I don't want us to be upset with each other or anything like that.
I hate you already.
Where did you get that from? Where did you get upset with each other from? No, for real.
So now you want to...
No, for real. I'm not upset with anything.
What's my biggest fear?
What's that?
What's my biggest
Being misunderstood.
fear?
I didn't. You're both talking. What's that?
What's my biggest fear?
Being misunderstood.
Right. And when I'm talking about what I see and what you're not seeing and not looking at, and you just shut it down and start talking about violent imagery, and I never even got to come back to help you understand what I meant, or I didn't know what I meant, what I would have finished saying.
Do you want to know one of the things that really puts me off is when somebody puts a thought in my head, or they try to extrapolate what I'm feeling.
That's what I'm just saying to you.
Did it to me is what I'm saying. So when it's the assumption of what I'm going through, that's the part that's going to make me just going to fire back. It doesn't mean that I'm mad about it, but as soon as an assumption is, if you want to know some of the biggest fights I get in with my wife, it's when she assumes she knows what I'm going to say or think or feel.
Yeah, I hate that too.
I think I've misunderstood. So when you hear me say that, it's the same version. And it's not that it's that it feels or sounds like it is directed in a direction. And I understand that there's a neutrality to it. And the funny thing about it is I don't ever play devil's advocate with it, but I don't ever feel like I'm personally involved in this in a way that it would agitate me like it would in an emotional relationship that I have over here. So it's more just offering point of view that's different than what is the conversation. To me, what I see and what I think you do differently is you're operating with these people at such a higher level than I will have the expectation of them operating at. So it's like you're taking this and you're taking it to where the level is it's good for the people that can take it and move with it. There's no better way. I mean, I think Art and I are good versions and good examples of this. But in the difference in the discussion is just simply that, in the TCW, for example, we have 4 days with you. Now, is that enough? No. How much would I rather have? I'd rather have 30 days or 40 days. I'd rather have you around 20 dogs. I'd rather have you just like you did, make you quiet. I would rather have that, but I've had to learn to accept less in these situations. And you've always been able to work where you didn't have to accept less. All the way from the program I went through, the way that you taught people, and your expectation is to not accept less. And so it won't necessarily be a difference in our opinion or agreement on something. It's just that when it comes to certain things, I've learned to accept less. Not from myself necessarily, but from a situation where I have 3 days or 4 days or 5 days. And I'm like, all right, what can I get across in these 3 days that are the most relevant, impactful, helpful? I know I can't teach you the nuance, the detail to understand this. So what can I teach you? And I think that's where
you sit back and tell them that, hey, there's so much, I'm just generalizing, there's so much more, there's this and that. This is basic. But if that were the case, then people wouldn't come out thinking they've got a degree and saying that's a middle of the pack.
I don't know why people do that. I think that's the human nature of the modern human for a million reasons.
Now take that understanding and then add the leash or a foot or a yank or a crank. That's the stuff I feel when I see. That's all I'm talking about. And that's our responsibility.
Right.
At a minimum, let them know that you don't know anything when you leave here. Okay? This is just stuff to touch upon. They're bullet points to open up down the line to find out what everything else is. and again, we have an opportunity to teach here, so we have more than 3 days.
Well, my philosophy with the students is like a wrench, and I'll even say it on the last day or two is that, all right, last day, we shouldn't be doing the same. We shouldn't be making these same mistakes. We are not going to be as easy on you as we were the first 2 days. I am now here to put pressure on you, and I say this out loud to everybody in front. Like, I'm now here to put pressure on you. This is now something you're going through. I'm not going to accept the fact that I've watched 4 of you correct a dog for doing nothing wrong. And I want you to feel the vice I'm putting you under right now because you're doing it to the dogs. And it's not okay.
Well,
I've done this to students, and this is all
me too.
from you. And the reference of what you say is that you're always doing it from the dog's point of view. And I've always held that. And I sacrifice relationships in some sense because I take that approach, because people don't always agree with it. But I'm the voice of the dog. And if you're fucking with the dog, I'm going to say something. And I'm not going to necessarily say it politely if we've talked about it. So I get it. But I've also have to have this other side.
Yeah.
Of where I got to walk away from it and go, okay.
Got a wife, kid. I don't have any of that. So yeah, I am lost in what I see and feel. You're absolutely right. My expectations are high, but don't come to me or don't post that you do nothing. Not you, you being the pronoun, that you advocate for dogs and that you love dogs and you're going to do this for dogs, and then don't even educate yourself, but continue to educate everybody else with what you don't know. That is a problem out there, and I'm not really seeing a way to solve it, and I can't. I'm not that guy that says, well, this is the most I can do. I feel like I'm not holding up my end of the bargain because this runaway train got out there with the social media, and people don't want to learn. They just want the title. They just want the money. That just bothers me. I don't know how I don't know how to.
One of the things I'm most impressed with Caesar about is his inability or his ability, to never really make a student feel wrong. I'd have to say that there's a couple of things he impresses me most about. That would be one of them for sure, and he is uncanny at that. And I think this is one of the situations where you're going to get more with honey from this than you are with vinegar. You have to take an approach
of logic. I could just get a bunch of cow shit and have more than honey and vinegar to combine.
I think Art just said it when you said, you can't. I mean, it's hard to change the mind with it. If it is coming through ego, it is a very difficult mind to change.
The students?
Anybody that is, like you're talking about, presenting themselves in the way that you're discussing, and the people that have been doing this for 2 years and suddenly they're taking students and teaching them and training them and so forth like that. Those are ego-based decisions, financial-based decisions, maybe business-based decisions. They're not decisions we're going to change by presenting common sense or alternative ideas.
Well, if nobody puts up the alternative ideas, if nobody stands the ground, then nobody's going to look that way. Just like the vets are going to keep saying, don't take your dogs anywhere.
Well,
nobody's saying anything.
Then let's bring some of them on. So I had somebody, what was my post? It was a post about ignoring nervousness, right? So ignoring that when the dog is acting nervous, don't talk to him because the brain will record your voice. And then I mentioned ignoring, doing the whole type of thing. And somebody that had a significant following, it looked like about 200,000 or 300,000 followers, left a comment saying that what I was doing was wrong. And I went, no, I give affection, I give attention, I just don't give affection when they're nervous. I just ignore that. And then he went on and he starts going, well, you need to learn about this, bro. And I went,
that's how
I just go, yeah, I just keep doing what you're doing. I didn't challenge him. I said, you just keep doing what you're doing. And I looked at his page, and he's one of these fear-free trainers. Now, if you haven't seen this, this is even different than force-free or all this. Fear-free means the dog will have no fear ever. So the little Yorkie I had here was trained by what's called a fear-free trainer, which means that I medicate you on multiple medications right away. And then if you show any anxiety or nervousness, we shut down whatever's happening, because if you go through nervousness, you'll be traumatized. They don't take the approach of you have to go through nervousness to not be traumatized by nervousness. Yep. They take the approach that says you will be traumatized by the fact by the act of going through it. And so this guy started doing this stuff, and I looked at his page, and I was going to ask you guys, we should bring people like that on here and say, okay, explain yourself. We're really open. We're going to let you explain yourself. You can't start bashing people.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to bash people. I want to bring
no.
And,
yes.
And
he's back. He's the one that's telling me I need to educate myself and I need to cheat and I need to study all this. I didn't argue with them. I wanted to say, hey, look, great. Come on.
Let's do it.
Give us. I don't give nervousness affection, because what he said is you can't reinforce emotion. And I was, in my mind, I'm like, dude, just go away, because the fear-free thing makes for the weakest mindset that exists.
I had this conversation with somebody that I actually care about with reinforcing emotion, and we got to a point where we understood that what we're doing is we're not reinforcing the emotion, but we are reinforcing the condition that keeps the emotion. So if we don't pay attention to, say, nervousness, we're not paying attention, anybody listening. I'm paying 100% attention. But what I'm doing is I'm not letting the dog seek any kind of validity, or reinforcement that it's doing the right thing. I want the dog to either calm all the way down, or I want it to build up on its own. But you're not going to get any soothing talking, no touching. I'll touch a dog that's nervous 100%. I'll just put my hand on them. But I'm not going to stroke them, pet them, and make them feel good. And that's where you can't even talk to these people, because they've got it in their brain. And if they would stop thinking, I'm on agreement with you and no fear, but you need to see what my side is. And people can't do that for whatever reason.
Well, I think we've talked about this in the past, where in nature, things happen the way they need to happen. It's perfect. So if there's a predator and a prey, and the prey happens to run away and get away, they don't sit and dwell in it, and they're allowed to process it and go through it. And that's the point I think Todd is trying to make, is that we allow them to go through it instead of stopping it. So, because in one way they are suppressing the growth.
Yeah.
Right. So either way they're suppressing it. They want to say that we suppress, but they are also suppressing the growth of allowing the dog to go through it, and then just almost like shake it off in a way, because that's what would happen in the animal world.
Yeah.
However,
you go through fight, flight, avoidance in a brief moment, and you always return back to a more relaxed mindset.
Yep.
However,
unless a human's involved,
who are of the 2-year experience or less out there thinking they hear us say, and they got to go through it.
That's a good
and
point
they'll
too.
drag a dog through it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where shit gets hard. I did that chance video. People would send me their video of their dog putting it in, up and down stairs, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
God,
that's true.
And I'm like, oh my God, or getting them into a car. I see that you're trying, but man, please don't do that again that way.
That's important to also point out too, because what people may see a one little small version, they can escalate it, and it's talking about Goldilocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, you need to talk about your Goldilocks, because we got a lot of comments on those on YouTube. But Goldilocks is just enough, just right.
Well, her whole mission in life is to find balance. Where is it just right? And that's why it's rule number 5, right in the middle. But yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's. I'll add on to that. It's like Goldilocks. This porridge is too hot. This porridge is too cold. This is just right. Same thing when we do use the leash. People can see like, oh my God, they're dragging the dog. No, we're just guiding a little bit, and then it makes its decision. So we're helping the dog take that first step, and then we do it again. And then over time, you don't need to use the leash as much, because you're giving it just right. And my quote that I always say is, I want to use the leash as little as possible, but as much as I need, right? And so that is also a Goldilocks, So I'm going to use it just what I need. And then as I progress and start going through, I'm using it less and less and less. So the dog has made the decision on its own to come to his own conclusion through my guidance, but now it's doing it on his own. So Linn, your quote is, accomplishment breeds confidence, right? And so the dog is now confident that it can do that, overcome its fear, because I'm guiding the dog through it.
It's a little gift for everybody to understand this. Watching our videos, and we do this, it's not the same as what most people are doing, where they're really dragging the dog into a position and the dog doesn't want to go. That is not what we're doing. Now, when I bring them, especially like with the Chance, all those videos, Chance, Bruno, and I can't remember her name right now, but I don't drag them. Okay, I'll take them to what I call the tipping point. And that tipping point might be the first pull on the leash, which is applying pressure. And that's the tipping point. And I might hold that pressure until they relax in that position. And then a little bit more. I even stop to talk to cameras so that the dog can decompress in its first or second attempt. But when I get them to that tipping point, to the real tipping point where it's going to be me pull them over the step, into the pool, into the vehicle, or through the doorway. When I get to that point right there, I let the leash a little bit go so that their step is the one that counts in the brain of the dog. Their step, they took that step. I could have pulled them, or they would have fallen off, but I kind of bring that leash to the point where they're not going to fall back, they're not going to fall off, but they're looking. You can see all the dogs, they're looking to where to put their foot. They're not looking to try to get away from me. That's a big thing. That's where, whether it's nuance or not, it's understanding emotion and understanding what you're doing, your own abilities. But get them to that point, that tipping point where I could pull you or you could take a step. I'm just going to hold the leash. There's no choking. If you're choking the dog, you're not using pressure properly. I get them right to that edge, and I'll show you in the videos. If I just show you that part, you can see the brain processing. And then they go to take that step, and then that's when I reduce and release the pressure altogether, and the dog is like, each one of those 3 videos, you see the dog want to do it on its own completely after. I'll go up the stairs twice. I'll get back in the car. We were done with what's her name? Dang, what's her name? It's on the tip of my tongue. We were done with the car. And we're starting to walk away, and she looked, and I go, oh, did you want to pick a different car? You can pick a different car. Which one do you want? And she chose to do it again in that vehicle with Bruno at the end of it, where he chose to be off leash and come over multiple times to try and get close to me. That is the result, not a shut down dog that's just not doing a bad behavior anymore.
And by the way, mentally, if someone drags a dog, let's say, into a crate and picks up the dog, mentally, that's the exact same thing. The dog never actually learned the process. The only difference is there's a different emotion attached to it, obviously. But the mental aspect is the dog actually never learned how to go from point A to point Z or whatever. You know what I mean? It never learned how to go through that.
Sometimes it's okay. Like I just did it in reverse. I picked a dog up.
Oh, I did that too, by the way. Yeah.
I wasn't going to, because he was so bad on a leash, I wasn't going to try to use what I needed to get him on the golf cart. So I said, fuck it. The first few times I picked him up, I set him 100%. Where I needed to be. And I explained it as I started in the middle.
Yeah.
And then after
100%.
Leash and got more trusting in me, I went back and he learned, and he did it on his own. I didn't even have to show him. For the video, I used a leash, but the reality is he did it on his own because he knew where we were going. He knew what we were doing. At the beginning, he just didn't know how to make his brain work in this like fashion of following these steps. And so I started in the middle.
There's still the steps. It's like ABC, D, E, F, D, F.
Yep.
You said D, E, F, so now we'll do A, B, C, D, F. There's nothing wrong with
100%.
Sometimes I like doing the most difficult thing first.
They don't do it consciously. They pick the dog up and they put it on the golf cart, and they don't do that with the conscious idea of reversing it later. And, so everything we do that might seem against what we say is done consciously. It's never done, helter-skelter.
Now, the Goldilocks thing with all of this, let's say that we're working, like, I won't do things now that will look like anybody could take it the wrong way, So I don't use corrections whatsoever in front of anybody or even at all, really. And same thing, dragging a dog, you're going to watch me do a little bit, and then you're going to watch me stop altogether. because now I have come to my level where I'm like, I got to teach people what they can do, not what I can do, what you need to do to get there. And if you can't do this, then there's no way you're going to do that. So the Goldilocks thing, let's say with Chance, I was prepared to be up on that stairs for an hour, right? I was going to get him to the edge and let it go and let him relax, do it again. So he's got the A, B, A, B, A, B, C. I don't care. I'll come back the next day and pick up where I left off. There's no need to get it all done right this second, unless lives are in danger. So you can really, you can pull a dog through it and they'll never have a problem with those stairs or the door ever again. But it wasn't the way that it wasn't comfortable to learn that way. And I mean, even in my early days, I know that when I'm using the leash, I wish that I didn't do it that way, but I wouldn't be where I am now because I'm constantly reviewing and evaluating personal performance evaluation. What just happened? What happened? What did I do? How can I improve? What did I do? Never judgment.
Okay, bro.
Huh?
Okay, bro.
What's that mean?
That's what that guy told Todd.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's put him on. Like I sent you guys that video I wanted to put on to break down. Now, let me go ahead and tell you what I was going to tell you then, because I think
This is the last stop, by the way, because we've already gone over.
Yeah, got to wrap it up. It's late here for me. I got to get to live.
Let me just finish this, even if it's not recording. Like if we put that video up and we broke that video down, I believe that this guy, I mean, his first post was in January. Okay, January, and he's doing these things. I really think that he can be an amazing individual with dogs, and he may get there on his own, but the wake that he's leaving behind him is what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about all the people watching him and going to duplicate that. And even if they don't watch him and duplicate it, he watched somebody else and is duplicating it. I think he's a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, very personable. I think that if he saw and heard from people like us that this isn't necessary or should even happen, that he might change his whole ways and improve and actually want to become a student again. You know what I mean? I didn't realize
We
how long
get
to talk.
glasses and get rid of the tracksuit, and he'll be ready to go.
Which guy has a tracksuit? Did you saw the video?
I'm not sure who you're talking about. I assumed you were talking about some dude who wears like Gucci tracksuits and stuff.
No, that's not what he's talking about. He was talking about the video that he sent us of the trainer, that like British trainer or something.
I think he's Australian.
Oh,
I don't want to attack them. I want to take somebody I see a great deal of potential, but just doing something very bad, and see if we can convince them to understand differently. Even the guy that is talking to you, I at least want to hear what he has to say and see if he can hear what we have to say. That'll just
send us a screenshot, Todd.
What's that?
Send us a screenshot.
Yeah, it was good. You know what I learned too is I've learned how to turn social media, like use the comment section the right way against people that do that shit. Like get involved a certain way, and then the other people in the comments will come in and like do the work.
Take over, yeah.
I had a post. It's still going. It may be my first one that gets to 1 million. It's got like 850,000 views right now. And somebody early on, and it's this weirdest thing. So it was about a near-death experience, and and nobody in the comments is really allowed to be negative because it's like a comic culture now. And there's like, it's the most active I've had any post. And this guy really, really early on, like the second day, his name was the Devil's Ball Sack, and I clicked on his web. I always click on him because I have to see him. And he claims he's the devil's favorite sodomite. So you know where this guy's coming from in his head, right?
No pun intended.
And right? And I said, dude, with a name like that, you could troll harder than that, man. It's gotten like 600 or 700 likes, and below it is like 50 comments of people just laying into this guy. It's like the comment section beat him up. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
That's his goal, is to go in and create havoc.
He got wrecked, dude.
Yeah.
He tried to keep up for a couple of comments, and then he's like, I'm out.
There's some good trolls out there, man. They go in there, they set fires, and they leave, and everybody's yelling at him. He'll come in and start it up again and leave.
You couldn't do it in this post because it was so like pure Rainbow Bridge shit. You couldn't mess with it, otherwise people wanted to wreck you. So it was interesting. Anyways, we need to wrap this up.
All right, guys. Good talk.
Yep.
And talk to you guys soon.